behind enemy lines, just like we drew it up at the beginning of the season. The 49ers season might be done, but they also might have a little fight left in them. And it starts this week against the Chicago Bears at home, a team that is desperate in their own right, probably pretty rejuvenated coming off of a mini bye and firing their coach. We're going to learn all about our opponent, and we're going to do it all next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it's behind enemy lines night, and I got my guy Keek from Keek on the mic representing the Chicago Bears tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, my man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You know, I heard in your little intro that you guys have a little bit of fight left in you. We're gutted right now. We have no fight left in us. You know, I know we fired our coach. We may come out with some energy, but we're just going through the motions right now. But I do appreciate you. I'm excited for this matchup. I'm a California guy, so it's always a good thing when my team comes back to Cali. So
there we go, man. There we go. I'm looking forward to this matchup. And to me, like, I really enjoy watching young quarterbacks kind of navigate becoming a true pro, and can they do it and can they not? And I got to admit, we'll get to Caleb Williams fully in a minute, but I do have to admit that Jaden Daniels was my number one quarterback this year. I did have Caleb like slightly behind him at number two, but the more I watch him, the more I'm actually impressed with Caleb Williams. I think there's something there. We'll get to him in a minute, but you started with a great segue, which is you may have fired your head coach. And we may have a guy that is rumored potentially to, might be available, maybe not. Who knows? But Florio came out and said, hey, the Chicago Bears should trade for Kyle Shanahan. So twofold question here. One, how happy are you that Eberflus is finally gone? And two, would you give up assets to go get Kyle Shanahan if you were the GM?
Yeah, to your first question, I think I speak for all Bears fans to say that we are so happy that Matt Eberflus is gone. I know when you're thinking at him as a person and he has families, I understand that. It's a tough business to be in, but we were starting to become the laughingstock of the NFL with his leadership. And I think it starts with that Thursday game against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, where you have a timeout left and you just let the clock run out, right? And it's just it kept happening time and time again, where he was making these late game just mistakes as a head coach, and people were starting to in the locker room lose faith in him. There's actually a report after the game to the Detroit Lions where Jalen Johnson, our top corner, was actually face to face with Matt Eberflus. They actually had to remove Eberflus from the locker room after that game, and I guess Jalen Johnson said some colorful language. That was a man that had no respect in that locker room. So I wish him nothing but the best, but he put Bears fans in misery. There's a lot of games that we could have won this year, but just due to his mistakes as a head coach, really cost us this year. And then going to your question to Kyle Shanahan, I speak differently from most Bears fans. I think we do have a lot of issues on our football team that particularly pertain to the offensive line. I think we truly need to address the interior. And of course, we have some problems on the defensive line as well, trying to find a true three technique. So a lot of Bears fans will tell you, like, hey, what would it cost to get a guy like Kyle Shanahan, right? It may cost a first, maybe a next year second. Just basically looking at what the Denver Broncos did to get Sean Payton a couple of years ago. That's kind of like the framework that I'm really looking at. When you look at the history of the Chicago Bears, we haven't had a good head coach since Lovie Smith, right? You're talking about Mark Trestman, John Fox, right? Matt Nagy, and now Matt Eberflus. It just has not worked. So I think for me, when I look at this situation, I think I'd be willing to risk giving up a first, second round pick to get one of the better coaches in the National Football League and just pair him with Caleb Williams, because I think it would be a beautiful marriage, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually think it would be a beautiful marriage as well. And Kyle talked very glowingly of Caleb Williams in his presser this week. So I think it could work. Now, my question is, and it's most likely not going to be Kyle, right? Like, it is a rumor and all, but it's most likely not going to happen. But do you trust this front office and this organization to go out and find a good head coach. And the reason I ask is because I don't know the full situation, but you've got somebody that's above the GM who kind of runs things, and Poles, I think, is a good GM, but it sounds like his hands are kind of tied. Like, what is going on in the front office over there?
Yeah, for right now, I think they're gonna sit here and say, just for PR reasons, that Ryan Poles is the GM. He'll have the final
Mm,
say. But it does sound like Kevin Warren, the Bears president, is kind of like fed up with it. He was brought in to kind of help build this new stadium, and that still hasn't really, been really a success for Kevin Warren. But now it seems like he's kind of stepping in and taking control. And they're going to say it's a collaborative effort at the end of the day. But no, you hear rumors about maybe the Bears being interested in Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach. And that signals Kevin Warren all the way, because he came from the Big Ten. I think he likes that college coaches. I tell you right now, if they get Marcus Freeman, I may have to find a new team. I'm being really serious, because that would just be me another failure. But the Bears are a mess right now. I think there's a lot of trust issues with Ryan Poles right now. And even when you watch the press conference of them talking about firing Matt Eberflus, it seems like Ryan Poles is really pissed off, kind of out of sync right now. It just seems like a GM that doesn't have the trust of its
mm.
organization. And I think later on that can cause some issues.
Now, I understand that he's from the Big Ten. What if I'm an Oregon Duck fan? What if Lanning was an option? Would you be more open to that?
I'm personally not a big fan of getting college coaches, and I think
Mhm.
the reason why in this instance, when we're talking about the Chicago Bears, this is going to be the most important hire in Chicago Bears history. We cannot fail
Yeah.
again, because if you don't get this hire right, that means you possibly have the opportunity to maybe fail on Caleb Williams and your quarterback once again. And I really think they need to think long and hard about what's best for Caleb Williams. And I think for me personally, we can get a proven head coach that's already done it, offensive minded, bright offensive mind. I think that's the route I would go to. I think he's an amazing head coach. He's done amazing things at Oregon. I'm just not a big fan of going down that route personally.
Yeah, I would agree. By the way, I don't think that's the right thing. I I think Joe Brady would be a great option for y'all.
I do too. I
He's
do too.
the offensive coordinator over in Buffalo. I just think, 35 years old. He's
Yeah.
worked with Drew Brees. He's worked
Right.
with Burrow. He's worked with
Right.
Allen. Like, if
Right.
anybody knows what an elite quarterback looks like, it's him. And if he's willing to go coach Caleb Williams, and that means he believes that he can be that good as well, I
Right.
think that'd be a great marriage. So those are the types of guys that I look at, because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, maybe you're not going to get the biggest, hottest thing because you're the Chicago Bears and you don't want to spend a lot of money. I feel like Joe Brady is still like a diamond in the rough enough to where if he really wants to be a head coach, that maybe he won't until next offseason because another team wouldn't maybe offer him. But if the Chicago Bears offer him, he'd be like, you know what? I really want to be a head coach. I got to take this opportunity. I'm going to go do it. I just feel like that could be a perfect pairing.
Yeah, and I do like Joe Brady for a simple fact because of the age, 35 years old. Look what he's been able
Mhm.
to do with Josh Allen over there in Buffalo. I think they have like the number 3 scoring offense right now.
Mhm.
And the Bears have never even sniffed top 10. I think the last time we sniffed top 10 in offense was probably back when we had Matt Forte, Jay Cutler, and all those guys right back in the day. And I also like the flair of Joe Brady maybe having that experience in college. He won a national championship with LSU back in 2019, I believe, as well. So I do like the aspect that he has some college experience, and I think that would also be good for Caleb Williams, but he's also a proven OC in the National Football League as well. I also look at guys, obviously, Ben Johnson, OC of the Detroit Lions. I think he's a
Yeah.
hot candidate. And then we can't forget about the opportunity that Thomas Brown has right now, the new interim head coach of the Chicago Bears. He was the OC for the last couple of weeks for the Bears, and he had Caleb Williams against, to me, pretty good defenses in the National Football League within our own division, playing pretty good football, where Shane Waldron had Caleb Williams going in a downward spiral. So I'm excited to see what Thomas Brown's able to do, because it's almost like a 5-game audition to show the Bears organization why he should be the next Bears head coach. So he's a wild card as well.
Yeah, I think he is a wild card. And if Caleb likes him and if some of those other big names in the locker room like him, it's kind of hard to
Right.
not give him the job or give
Right.
him a shot. But then you got the weird things like the Raiders did the same thing this offseason. It's like,
Right.
they liked him. They liked Pierce too. And that hasn't worked out so
Didn't work
good.
out.
So who knows?
And that's what kind of scares Bears fans as well. And let me
Mhm.
be honest with you. I think what I like about Thomas Brown so far is that he's transparent, he's direct, he commands respect, he takes accountability. And that's something that we haven't had in a Chicago Bears head coach in a long time. He kind of reminds me of Mike Tomlin. He's just very blunt and he goes to the podium and he just demands respect from everybody. And I think that's what the Chicago Bears truly need. And they keep saying the Bears need a leader of men. He fits that mold perfectly.
Well, if you like coaches that take accountability, maybe Kyle Shanahan's not your guy because that's not his strong
Maybe
suit. I'll
not.
tell you that right now. Yeah.
Right, right.
All right. Let me get to a couple of these supers real quick. Corbin B. Official says, Mama, we made it almost 2 years old. Go Niners. Yeah, 22 months you've been a member. I saw you're in Florida too, Corbin. I wonder what part you're in. Florida's a very big state, but as most of you know, I live in Tampa. Dave says, Jess, have you eaten? Potty break? Killing it, bro. Yeah, this is my third show back to back to back. I haven't had time to eat, potty break, none of it. So I'm going through, man. I'm going through.
Grinding. I love it.
All right, man. I got to ask you a question about Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
First of all, before we get too far into it, was he the quarterback that you wanted them to draft?
If I want to be completely honest with you on today's show, I was a huge Justin Fields fan. I feel that they really did Justin Fields dirty. They didn't really put their best foot forward to really build around him. He was almost like the sacrifice as they went through their rebuild. It wasn't Ryan Poles' guy, so I do respect that. But if I had to do it all over again, I know Bo Nix is playing well, Jaden Daniels is playing well. Caleb Williams would still be, to me, the number one quarterback, just for me and what we needed. He's a guy to me that he just has all the talent in the world. You look at some of the throws he's making. And I think what impresses me is that he didn't get rattled with Shane Waldron early on, right? I think Shane Waldron just was terrible and really putting Caleb Williams in great situations. He didn't do it at all. And usually in the past, our quarterbacks would get rattled, like Justin Fields, with Luke Getsy. He got rattled, right? He was never able to recover. But he stayed the course, and then when Thomas Brown took over, he just really elevated himself. So, yeah, I'm still all in on Caleb Williams. I think it's just up to the Bears to find the perfect head coach for him moving forward.
It's interesting with Caleb Williams because my thought process was, how different is he really than Justin Fields? I mean, they both kind of hang on to the ball too long. They both run around. They both have strong arms. I'm like, is he really different? And I think early on the answer was no. It was like literally went from Justin Fields to Justin Fields. But as time has gone on, he's really growing up very quickly, in my opinion. The rate that he went from turning the ball over and taking sacks to really turning that almost completely around is very impressive. And it was also interesting to me because in college, yes, he popped off the film with his arm strength and his mobility and all that. But early on, he didn't pop off the film in the NFL. I'm like, man, maybe he doesn't have the traits that people thought he had. But the last couple weeks, man, there's been 4 or 5 throws that you just, oh my gosh, like, okay, I see it now. It's definitely there. Again, not my favorite prospect coming out, but I'm starting to see week by week why people had him as a can't miss prospect, even though I didn't necessarily have him as that.
Yeah, I think early on, I think you saw what we all saw, especially early in the preseason, him making those crazy throws. I know it's preseason, but, you really saw the USC Caleb Williams. But then as time went on, especially with Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus, I feel like they were holding him back, kind of like coaching him not to be aggressive and not make those tight window throws, right? And then over the last couple of weeks of Thomas Brown, he even said, hey, I want Caleb Williams to be Caleb Williams. I think there was a drive. I think it was the last drive against Green Bay before the field goal got blocked. It came out that basically what Thomas Brown said in the headset on that final drive, go be Superman. And Caleb Williams took that, and you saw what he was able to do on that final drive, making some big-time throws. And for me, kind of going back to what the big difference is with Justin Fields and Caleb Williams, because early on, yes, that was one of the big things before we drafted Caleb Williams. Like, hey, he holds on to the ball just like Justin Fields. But the thing about Justin Fields, that when things went wrong and when the pocket was collapsing, he would always take off and run. He would never throw the football. He was never really good or elevate himself when it came to throwing the football. With Caleb Williams, if you watch him, he's always looking downfield to make a throw. And that to me was the biggest thing. He's not bailing the pocket 24/7. He's willing to stay in the pocket, sit there, and sometimes it does lead into the sacks. But just like I tell my dad, which is he's also a big Bears fan, that you have to live and die with that, because sometimes, when he holds on to the ball too long, he also makes good things happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're starting to see a lot of it play out.
Right.
Do you feel like Caleb Williams has, now as the season's gone along, like has he lived up to the expectations? Do you think across the board Bears fans are in? If a lot of people were like you, which I know they really, really, really like Justin Fields, and even early on in the season, it's like, God, we got rid of Justin for this. Like we could have just kept Justin and spent. Do you feel like people are more on board now than they ever have been?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we see a bright future. I think for the first time ever, we weren't losing games because of the quarterback. And it took me a long time to kind of understand that. As much as I love Justin Fields, he was terrible in the fourth quarter. And there's stats out there that I can really bring up. But I don't want, I don't really want to talk about Justin Fields anymore. But,
for sure.
But it's one of those things that with Caleb Williams, he's not losing us games. He's actually helping us, put us in positions to win football games. And when you look at the stats, he's already broken every single rookie Chicago Bears record in season, which wasn't hard to do at the same time. But I think we are excited for the future, and it's because of Caleb Williams.
That's awesome. Good. Well, I hope that the future is bright in Chicago for your sake.
Thank you.
That's the other thing about me is like when the franchises have been down for so long, I really start to kind of root for the fans. I'm like, God, they just give them something good once. Can they at least make the playoffs or something? Like,
they
deserve better.
And it's like, and it's crazy because, with me living in California, I'm surrounded by 49er fans. So I've seen, the success. They talk a lot of mess to me, and rightfully so. The Bears have been bad. I've gotten so much shit talk from 49ers fans saying the Bears suck. And all I can say is, yeah, we do. We've been rebuilding since 1985 is the joke in Chicago. So it's like, for once, I think we have the most important position in football finally taken care of, and that's the quarterback position. And he's got to continue to get better and work on some things. But that's why this coaching hire is going to be the most important hire in Chicago Bears history.
And maybe the right thing is to keep who you have in house as the guy, because what I heard you say was exactly what young quarterbacks need to hear. They need to know that their head coach has all the confidence in the world in them. Right. And that relationship between head coach and young quarterback is so paramount to a young quarterback's success. And I will never forget when Jim Harbaugh was here, how much he propped up guys that really, they weren't good enough to be elite in this league. But man, you wouldn't know that by talking to him. When he was asked about it, I was like, oh, this guy's a gamer. He's the best thing. Like, he's as good as anybody. He's this, he's that. And he's pumping them up and constantly reaffirming how good they are. It's so important for a young quarterback in their development. So maybe that is the right move, is just keep it going.
Yeah, and that was the big thing, like going back to Matt Eberflus. He had trust issues with this quarterback, and that was even with Justin Fields and now with Caleb Williams. And an example I like to use, it was just a couple of weeks ago against the Minnesota Vikings. It was 4th and 3. Caleb Williams was like yelling at the sideline, like, hey, let's go for it. Let's go for it. He took him off the field. You have a young quarterback that's telling you, hey, I'm cooking right now. Let's go for this. With Thomas Brown, you haven't seen that. Thomas Brown he gets fired up, right? He's like, let's go for it. Let's do it. That shows full confidence in your young quarterback, and that shows confidence in your offense. And I'm excited to see the Chicago Bears starting this weekend, because I think it's going to be a totally different team. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even know what team to expect, because it's going to be totally different, because you're under new leadership. You're under a coach now that coaches with that fire. He's going to coach to win. He's not going to coach scared like Matt Eberflus. And I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about expectations, because I feel like expectations for the Bears were all over the place to start this year. For the 49ers, it was clear, like Super Bowl or bust, that's where we're at. But for the Bears, it's like, man, depending on who you talk to, it's like, I think they could be a playoff team, or we could be a playoff team. And other people are like, oh, come on, it's part of the process. Like, let's ease into this. What were your expectations for this team when the season started, and have they met them?
Yeah, I really thought the Bears were going to be a 9 to 10 win team, which is still possible. To get 9 wins if they win out, it's going to be tough. But I thought 9 to 10 wins, and I think they're not going to meet my expectations, and I think it's due to obviously the coaching. I think the players are at fault too, but I also look at Ryan Poles and how he built the offensive line. It really hasn't been good. Caleb Williams has been the most sacked quarterback this year. I think it's reaching 50, being sacked 50 times, and it's not all on the offensive line. But yeah, they didn't reach my expectations. I think for me, I thought this was going to be the year that they made the playoffs. Truthfully, at least a wild card. And it just didn't happen. And I'm getting to the point where I'm tired of saying, okay, yeah, we're close. We're improving, but we're still not there. It's like, I think even though Ryan Poles has had his misfires, with Matt Eberflus not building the offensive line, Chase Claypool, you can go down a rabbit hole. I think he's done enough to the roster for this Bears team to be good enough to at least go to the playoffs as soon as this year. And I would say this year was a major disappointment, not only for me, but for all Chicago as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because to me, the two teams that received the most hype this offseason were the Jets and the Bears.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy in for two different reasons. The Jets, I just didn't buy their brand. I'm like, they're clearly trying to buy a Super Bowl here. They haven't gelled. Like, why would this team be good? Aaron Rodgers hasn't played in a year. Like, there's no way the Jets are going to be good. So I didn't buy their brand at all. Chicago, I actually bought the brand of, hey, they're building towards something good here.
Right.
I just thought it was a year early.
Yeah.
Especially having a rookie quarterback. So, but like I said, I do think that they're on an upward trajectory. Yeah. And, one good draft, you get another player on the offensive line or a player on the offensive line that can really anchor things down. It can change very, very quickly. So I think the Bears could be a playoff team next year. I do.
Yeah. I think we're still, I know it's cliche, but we always say we're one offseason away. We're one offseason away. I think, this is going to be a very crucial offseason. We have 3 picks in the top 100, $80 million to spend. And, you have the most important position taken care of, and that's the quarterback. So now you can just build around him and hope for the best and hopefully get the head coaching hire right.
Absolutely. All right, man. I got to know, we do have a matchup this weekend, and I got to know about this Bears roster. Like, give me, we know the Jalen Johnsons, the Caleb Williams, all the big studs on this team, but who's good on this team that we may not know about that might be a difference maker in this week's game that we got to pay attention to?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, on the defensive side of the football, that's going to be Terrell Smith. He's our second-year cornerback. You probably heard the story, after the Hail Mary with Tyreek Stevenson. He's also a second-year corner. I'm not sure if you've seen the video surface of him taunting Commanders fans before the Hail Mary when it was viral. He's had a really rough season, Tyreek Stevenson. And so they started splitting reps with Tyreek Stevenson and Terrell Smith. Terrell Smith has been very good for the Chicago Bears alongside Jalen Johnson, because people don't usually test Jalen Johnson. So they usually test either Terrell Smith or Tyreek Stevenson. Terrell Smith has been a pleasant surprise for the Chicago Bears at corner this season for the Bears defense. I would say offensively, Rome Odunze has been very good. He kind of started off slow. I think it was due to, Shane Waldron, but him and Caleb Williams have been heating up over the last couple of weeks as well. He has shown that he has really strong hands, really good route running ability, good yards after the catch ability as well. I have high hopes for him to be our future number one, and that's with DJ Moore in the fold. I think that was their whole point in drafting Rome Odunze, for him to be the future wide receiver one for the Bears. And him and Caleb Williams have formed a really strong connection over the last couple of weeks.
What you guys have Brisker, right?
Yeah, but he is currently concussion protocol. So he got hurt
is he?
During that Panthers game where Tommy Trimble ran him over, and he ended up playing the rest of the game. And he went instantly on concussion protocol, and he was on concussion protocol for about 3 weeks before they finally put him on IR. So he's still technically on IR, so he will not be available for this week's matchup, which is huge, because he is kind of like that hybrid safety. You can put him in the box. He's a big hitter. He's been better in coverage this year, so we've really missed him on that defense.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I was actually what I was going to ask you about is what is the injuries? What is it looking like injury-wise for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so right now we are just dealing with Jaquan Brisker. He's on IR. I know our backup guard or starting guard. I know the offensive line is kind of shuffled. Ryan Bates, the guy that we got from the Buffalo Bills over the offseason, he's also in concussion protocol. I know that Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, and DJ Moore did not practice today as well, which those are three huge names for the Chicago Bears offense. They should probably be good, I would assume. But that's basically it. I think we've been pretty healthy, thanks to the football gods this year. But yeah, the big ones is definitely Jaquan Brisker right now, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, more.
Okay. And matchup wise,
Yeah.
what is something that when you look at the Bears and you look at the 49ers, like what's an area that you feel confident in this week's game, like that the Bears can be successful at?
I would just say trying to attack, this Niners defense. I'm not sure what the status is of Bosa. I know that's a huge part of your defense.
Hasn't practiced all week.
Right. Why hasn't practiced all week. And that's huge because I think if Caleb Williams can just get in a rhythm and there's not constant pressure in his face, I think that's when he can really start dissecting and you're going to really see, the true Caleb Williams. And I think when he's under pressure, bad things can happen. Caleb Williams is actually one of the better quarterbacks against the blitz. Surprisingly, when teams blitz him, he actually plays better, which is interesting to me. But yeah, I think the Bears could take advantage of kind of like the injuries that you guys are dealing with. I don't have a lot of hope in the Bears defensive line. They've kind of struggled in getting pressure on the quarterback. That's kind of what I want to see more of that. This was at least what Eberflus calling the defense. He loves to sit back and send four. But the problem is that our front four were never getting home. But for this game, I'm really only concerned with the development of Caleb Williams and how he can attack the Niners defense.
Yeah, that's a matchup I'm really curious to see is just Caleb against the defense. Now, obviously, if Bosa's out, that makes his job a heck of a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's definitely some injuries on the 49ers. It's not good over here for sure, but I think that's what makes this game really interesting. You've got a 49ers team who has had high expectations. They have not lived up to those expectations, but is there fight that's still left in them? We're going to find out. And then we've got a Bears team who really, it's funny because a lot of 49er fans look at the 49ers and say, oh, well, if one thing gone this way or that way, they could be an 8-win team.
Right.
I look at the Bears and say, if any team like had a stake that they could plant and say, hey, we should have more wins, it's them. Because they truly lost on the last play of the game 3 times this year.
Yeah.
3 times by the craziest things. One of them, you had a Hail Mary in Washington.
Yeah.
Another one, you had a blocked field goal against Green Bay, a very makeable field goal. And then the third one was on Thanksgiving. The whole world saw it. They were right there to put the nail in the coffin of the Lions, and they couldn't do it because their head coach didn't call a timeout. Like, what is going on, man? It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, and you also have to add the fact against the Vikings, down by 11, and Caleb Williams, helps us get back into the game. We forced overtime and couldn't come away with that win either. And it's like, those are 4 games where the Bears could be sitting probably at like the 6th spot in the NFC playoff picture right now, but instead our season is over.
Absolutely. Well, that might not be a bad thing. You get one more high pick, you can
I guess so.
Boost up that offensive line, right? Yeah. I'm sure you guys would love to hear that. Alan from Coles says, I had to make it fair for you and Grant. I appreciate you, Alan. He says, what is a sleeper player? What sleeper player do the Bears have? Jess, I'll hit you up on X. Well, I think we just went through a couple of them that he mentioned. Their number 2 corner rookie, right? You said?
Yeah, no, he's a second-year player, corner, Terrell Smith.
Okay.
He's been playing really, really good football, just really aggressive, good ball skills, all that good stuff. He to me has played better than our original starter, Tyreek Stevenson, also a second-year player. That's a name that I'm excited to watch him play and finish the season because I think the point of the Bears now is to develop some of the young guys that we have. Of course, we're still trying go out there and win for confidence purposes and maybe take that momentum into next season. But yeah, keep a close eye for Terrell Smith. I think he's been playing good football. He's number 32, I believe, 32.
Okay. how's the linebacker play been for Chicago? Decent, bad, like what?
Outstanding.
Yeah,
Outstanding. I think
really?
that's a
Okay.
strong point for Chicago. You're talking about TJ Edwards, outstanding. Tremaine Edmonds, outstanding, and then Jack Sanborn, outstanding. I think that's to me the unsung heroes of our defense at times. I think early on when the Bears were playing pretty good football, and the defense was getting constant pressure on the quarterback, that's when the linebackers thrive. And that's really in any defense, right?
Yeah.
When your defensive line is just giving up Swiss cheese and, your running backs are able to get to that second level, that makes it really tough on the linebackers. But, TJ Edwards, sideline to sideline, tackling machine, Tremaine Edmonds, he's just a big guy. So he's been pretty good in coverage, and then Jack Sanborn's pretty good coverage linebacker as well. So I'm really pleased with the linebacker play this year for the Bears, and that's what we've always been known for, right? Good running backs and good linebackers in Chicago Bears history. So it definitely meets the criteria.
Yeah. Not good quarterback play, not the best head coaches, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's been linebacker, defense, running game. That's the way it works.
That's
for
Bears
sure.
football. Yes.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. It definitely is. All right, man. We've come to the time.
Yep.
We've got to give a prediction on this game, and I'm so curious to see. I really don't know which way you're going to go on this one because I felt like early on you're like, we're cooked. And then it's like you started to show optimism as the show went on, and maybe it's because I'm optimistic about it. I'm not sure. I'll give my score prediction first, and I'll let you think about it. So I do think the 49ers are going to find a way to win probably 2 more games down the stretch here. And I don't know which games it's going to be, but the 49ers, the way they've played the last 3 weeks and with all these injuries, I can't in good conscience pick them to win a game until they show me they can win again. So although I think they're going to win a couple games down the stretch, and maybe this is one of those games they win, I'm looking at a Bears team that is completely rejuvenated. With a head coach that they like in the house. They had a mini bye. They played on Thursday. And a 49ers team that is coming off their worst back-to-back losses of the Shanahan era and are very, very beat up. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears to win. Now, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think this game is going to be very close. It could go either way. I'm going to go 24-23 Chicago to beat the 49ers this week.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, when the schedule came out, I was scared shitless. I was like, man, I'm from California. I've got to deal with it again. And, it's not going to be pretty. But then, the injury started happening. I really started to watch the Niners play. And I kept telling, any Niner fans, I'm like, okay, maybe they're beatable, especially with the injuries. And I think, I would be honest with you, we would have kept Matt Eberflus for one more week. I would have said guaranteed 49ers win. He was getting to the point where he was finding new ways to embarrass us and lose football games. I think Thomas Brown, and I'm not saying he's going to be the long-term solution, but I think just for this week, the Bears players, like you mentioned, are going to rally around him. This is going to be a rejuvenated bunch. And I think they're going to play hard for him because they like him. I think they want him to be the long-term head coach of the Chicago Bears. So I also have the Chicago Bears winning their first game, since who knows when, by a score of 21-17. I do. I'm optimistic about that too.
This would be their first road win, right? And that's what kind of pulls me back a little bit. I'm like, God, they haven't won on the road though. And it's so I don't know. That's why I think it's going to be close. Yeah.
And it's going to be a good game. It's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think we have to understand here is that we are now free from Matt Eberflus. And I think he was a huge problem. And now we have to give Thomas Brown an opportunity. And hey, he could be just as bad as Matt Eberflus. Maybe he makes the same mistakes down the stretch, but now you won't know until he does it, right? So I think I am cautiously optimistic about the Bears this week. And it could be easily one of these things where Brock Purdy comes out and absolutely dices us up. And it's 34-13. It could be one of those things as well. But I just think usually when you fire a head coach, especially when players are so built up and angry about it, they're going to have new hope and new life. And I think they're going to come out and play hard at least.
Yeah, Eberflus had a funny way of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I'll tell you that right now. Like this man found creative ways to lose. And 2 of the games that I talked about where they probably shouldn't have lost were on the road. So, that could go either way. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. I did like the question here from Justin. He said, "Oh, let's talk linebackers. Who are you taking?" Because the 49ers have a pretty rich history as of late too with linebackers. Bears starting linebackers, like if you're building your best 3 Bears linebackers or the best 3 Niners linebackers, man, that's actually a really good question. I don't know, man. That's tough.
I think each franchise has had very historic linebackers, but you start going down the rabbit hole of Dick
Yeah.
Buckus, Michael Singletary, Brian Urlacher. And I think that just does the job
You
for
gotta
me. I
go
don't
to the
think
Bears.
I don't
For sure.
and I think it's close. I'm not saying it's a blowout,
No,
but
no, no, no.
when you put Buckus, Singletary, and Brian Urlacher in the same room and they're on one team, I think that would just be unstoppable.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, we're talking about 3 legends of the game. The 49ers have some very good players, but it's like Bowman was great, but he's not on that level. You know what I mean? And so
Because
it's
it would be
like you
Patrick
got
Willis
Warner.
for you, right? Patrick
Willis for
Warner,
sure. Warner's going to be
Warner.
there for sure. Romanowski, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, what route are you going to go after that? Are you going to go Bowman? Are you going to go Greenlaw? Good players, but we're talking 3 bona fide Hall of Famers that were special for the Bears. I'd have to lean the Bears, but yeah,
that's a great question. That's a great question because I think the Niners are also usually known for their linebacker play and just having really, really good linebackers. But I just think the Bears are just on a different level and just history. Because like I said, mentioned earlier in the show, linebackers and running backs has kind of been our thing.
Yeah, for sure. All day, every day, Kim says Chi-Town will win this. Brock's shown us nothing. Wow. There's a very, very split in the fan base right now, man. Very split. Oh, Ken Norton. Yeah, Ken Norton. That's true. That's true. Ken Norton. Alden wasn't a true linebacker. That's what I'm saying. Romanowski. There's a lot of choices, but there isn't that third for sure. You know what I mean? And when I look at the Bears, they got that solidified 3 that it's like you cannot argue it.
And then even going deeper, you're talking about Lance Briggs too. And I know he's not really on the level of those 3 guys I mentioned, but Lance Briggs was also a really good player for the Bears.
I remember there was a lot of stories about Lance Briggs where guys would come to the team and they would see Urlacher and they're like, oh my God. And then people would be like, yeah, but wait till you see Lance Briggs. That's how good he was. You know what I mean? When in his prime, at least, it was like, man, he was on that level. He was very good. So,
and it was cool because when I first became a Bears fan early on, that's who I got to grow up watching was Devin Hester, Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher, right? And I always think back, like, how in the hell did the Bears not win more games or you make more Super Bowl appearances with those guys on the field, right? And it's just because of the coaches and quarterback play at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Sanders says the Bears have got to put us out of our misery this week. I will say this. Yeah, it goes both ways. I do have to say, like, as bad as the last 2 weeks have been as far as losses have gone, I did say that losing to the Bears would be the official rock bottom for this team. It just would be. I mean, 2 horrific back-to-back losses, 3 losses in a row, and then losing to the Bears, making it 4 in a row. It's like, I'm sorry. The Bears have just found ways to lose, but we have too. And I think that would be the official, like, all right, it's over, man. It's over.
See, I feel like it's the opposite for the Bears fan base. Like, I think we still respect you guys in that organization. And we feel like you guys still have a lot of great players playing, even though you guys are, decimated by injuries without CMC, Bosa, right? The Ayuk, there's a lot of guys, but I feel like you guys also still have a pretty solid team. It's not your strongest team, but I think it's still good enough to, get the job done. Like against a team like the Bears, obviously.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. Hey, listen, I want everybody in the chat. We just got a good 40 minutes from this gentleman. Please go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Link is pinned to the top of the chat. Show him some love for sure. And as I always say, even if it's to talk crap after the game, if we win, sure, man, I'm sure he'll love it. All views are good views. So appreciate you so much for joining me, man. Chat, thank you guys so much. I'll probably be back with Sunil tomorrow night, y'all. So stay tuned for that. But this has been Behind Enemy Lines. Good luck to your Bears this weekend, but not too much.
Same to you guys. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah, I'm from California, so either way, I'm going to be hearing it. So
yeah, for sure. All right, guys, have a good night.